Hi friends, welcome to a bonus episode today, which isn't even an episode in the traditional sense. I am excited to introduce you to the first guided run that I'm going to be doing. I will have a few of these coming over the next few months, and I thought it was a way for us to feel like we were running together without actually running together. It's an idea I've been thinking about for a few years maybe even, and I'm finally putting it into practice. And I'm excited for you to check it out. If you do it, make sure you take a picture of you joining me for a run and share it. I would love to hear your feedback. And maybe even eventually we can turn these into essentially what was Tina for Real, which many of you may remember, where I would answer your questions, and I would love for us to make it into that. So this is just a basic one of just running and reflecting. You will hear what I mean when we get going. But for now, I'm excited to join you on a 30 or 45-minute run. So I'm going to, I guess, turn it back over to myself, but let's do it. Okay, friends, time for a run together. We can't be together due to, the global pandemic, but I figured this was one way we could join one another for a run. You could get to experience something that we can pretend we're running together, and it's just enjoyable to, hopefully this will be a good balance of connecting with your environment where you are, making the most of your situation, reflection, but also, imagining we're having a conversation. So we get your watch ready, and you're ready to begin. We're going to begin in 3, 2, 1, and we're off. So, as with these runs, as with most of my runs, when I start, I like to take a moment just to check in, see how things are feeling. We're going to check in a few times throughout this run. You'll have either a 30-minute option, so you can stop at the 30-minute mark, or you can keep going and we'll do a 45-minute run together, or anywhere in between. But at the beginning, I think it's important for us to check in. There's a few ways of doing this. One way is to have a scan down. So start from the top of your head, work your way down. I'll do it with you in just a second. Work your way down through your body. We'll check in, see if anything's feeling tight, if anything's feeling sore, any other sensations you have. And then later on in the run, we'll go back and check again, see how we feel, and see if anything's changed. See if any of those tight spots have loosened up. See if there's any new areas that are coming up that have maybe come up for you before. Maybe starting to be a sign of other things going wrong in your life. Or not in your life, I should say. In your runs, if there's something that comes up often. Right, so let's begin. So start your head. Shouldn't really have any tightness or soreness in your head, but what do you feel? How does your head feel? For me, I can hear feel my hair bouncing, feel some cool air on my forehead. Otherwise, not much. Going down to my shoulders, I can feel a little tightness in my shoulders. I did do some push-ups the day before yesterday, and I can definitely feel that, not so much in my shoulders but around the front. Can't remember what the name of that muscle is, but you know what I'm saying. And then as I go down, top of my arms feel a little bit stiff and cold, but it's just warming up, isn't it? I like to start out my run a little on the cold side so that I don't get too hot. And actually, I'll share in a minute a funny story about that with Steve and I. But anyway, let's carry on. Stay on track here, Tina. Going down to my forearms, my wrists, my hands, How do they feel? A little cold. Nothing wrong otherwise. Midsection. Feel my shirt on my stomach. Feel my pants. Tights on my hips. My legs feel pretty good. I've taken 2 days off before this, so just should be feeling good at this point. But everything, my legs feels pretty loose. My feet, slight ache in one of my arches. But sometimes I feel that to start. Not a plantar fasciitis kind of ache, but just a, settling of my feet. What do you feel? Let's just take a moment, see if there's anything that stands out to you as being uncomfortable, being tight. And we'll just check in just a few seconds. Alright, so we'll come back to that in a little bit. But now it's time to check in on our minds. How are you feeling emotionally, mentally? Is there a lot going on? This is a time where sometimes we do use it to process, to plan, to organize, but also it can be a time to get connected, to feel just something simple, to be doing just one thing. And sometimes that feels good in a world where we're constantly doing, needing, being asked to do things. It can be exhausting. So I love that running is something we can just do. There's no checking social media while you're on it. Checking email, that's definitely my guilty one. Checking all the other parts of your life. How's this person doing? Check on that person. It's a lot. But this is one way we can just connect in. So how are you feeling mentally? For me right now, there's always that underlying tone of just never being able to quite keep up. Always things that I think I'll get done each day and then never quite manage it. And it's tough. But I also feel good to be out here. It's nice to be out in nature. So what about you? I'll give you a few seconds just to think for yourself and just be. Okay, you caught me. I also had to cross the street. And of course the light had just changed. So, bad timing. But we're good now. So what did you notice? How are you feeling? I know this is different to listening to a podcast where you can learn something, or hearing a conversation where we can escape, or listening to music where you can be motivated. But sometimes we just need quiet space. And as much as sometimes we don't want it, and trust me, I get that, you feel like you don't have the time to just not be doing anything, not to be multitasking. But actually, I often find when I force myself to have that time, turn the music off, I go out and use a run just for a run's sake, or at least save some solitude time within that run. I find I can think so much clearer when I get home, and that's a good feeling. Then I can be productive in a better way, in a way that's more meaningful. So it's one of my goals with this run, is to give you equal parts of conversation and thinking, reflecting, but also I want to give sections of silence and just being still. And we're not still literally, as we know, we're running here, but giving moments to be quiet, because that's important too. So when I was talking there about running being just something we can do without thinking about other things, I've been thinking a lot about notifications, about emails, about a constant desire to be checking. I feel it, and I'm sure you feel it too. It's so hard to not be looking all the time. Because, I don't know if you've noticed, but for me, if I have my phone even on vibrate, but especially if it's on ring, if it beeps, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. If I'm in a moment of pure joy with my daughter, and I hear that noise, it's so hard to resist it. And I find that I go through these stages of almost like reasoning. So at first it's like the willpower thing. So I'll say, oh, I don't need to check that. I'm enjoying myself. I'm doing something important, whatever it may be. And then there comes that thought of that, well, what if it's something important? What if someone I love is hurt? And I need to know. But then, you reassure yourself that it's not. And then it's like a few minutes go by and it's like, well, I'll just check it now because otherwise I'll be thinking about it. And to me, that's sad. Even if it's someone else's phone that's near me, I find that I get the urge to look, to wonder what it could be, to wonder if I need to let that person know that their phone is beeping. And if you think about it, there are very few situations where we need to know something that immediately. And what often happens is that we check it, but then we want to task switch back to what we were doing, and so we put it down and then go back. But our brain is now stuck on what that message is. But then we didn't even reply to that message or do anything about it. So then we're stuck on it, but we have to go back to it at another point, if we even remember. Sometimes it just then leaves the mind, and then you forget, and then you forget to reply. And I'm trying to figure out a better way to do this, to not be secured to my phone or my computer all the time. Email is one that gets me the most. I've taken it off my phone, but I still find myself checking it a lot whenever my laptop's open. And that's not great, is it? So our runs, and you're going to hear about this if you haven't already, in episode 3 of Running Realised, our runs can be that solace time. That time where, yes, even if you have your phone, like a moment like now, I hope you have your phone on Do Not Disturb, or at least something where you can't see it, because that's so hard to ignore, and our runs can be one way for us to be connected. So speaking of that, to be connected, we have our 5 senses. So let's take a moment to look around. What is it? Let's start with the easy one. What is it you smell? take a deep breath. For me, I just smell, it's a cop-out answer, but like smell of nature, the outdoors, a bit wet. It's very damp here today. I smell that. What do you taste? Taste a bit of donut, which I probably shouldn't have eaten before I ran. What about, we've already done feel, so we'll skip that one for now. What do you see all around you? Do you see trees? I see trees. I see grass. I see trucks. I see tents. I see just little buds sprouting. And boy, does that feel good to see. I see a bird, a little robin sitting there. I see cars. I see grass. What do you see? Let's take a few moments to just think about what it is you see on your run. Anything you see you didn't notice before? If you run this course, this path, this loop before? I'm looking right now and I see a greenhouse to my left and a few houses that I haven't noticed. Often we find we do that. We run the same places. We assume we've seen everything there is to see. And usually we haven't. Not even close. And while that noise of that noisy car went past, what do you hear? I can hear some water rushing. I can hear that car being noisy. I can hear some birds, some other cars in the distance. And I can hear my footsteps. It's just good to reconnect with the world that we're in and be present, which I struggle with too, I'm not going to lie. I'm making myself sound like some yogi. Certainly not. But running is one area, one way I feel it's easiest. And so I figured with these guided runs, we can do it together. Keep one another accountable, because despite running being one of the easiest ways, it's not always the one we do it with. I quite often end up listening to podcasts when I should be using the time to connect, but I don't. So if you're doing it with me, then we can be doing it together, and we can see how we feel afterwards. It's a good feeling, huh? So friends, I want to tell you a little bit about a new company I've been working with. As you hopefully know, I test out things for many months before I say yes. And this company is going to tell you, well, if you were to speak to them, how vigorously I questioned them, how much I went back and forth with them, how much I stood my ground on certain things. But I want to tell you about Beam. Looking around their website, I noticed that they had a stat. 75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated. And I will be the first to put my hands up and say, I am one of those. I am not the best. That's an understatement. At getting in my water, sometimes it just feels like too much, I don't know, not work, but too easy to put off. And so I do. I quite often skip it and say, oh, I'm just going to do that later. But since I've been trying out Beam, I've been doing it more and getting myself these Beam drinks as part of my day, and I found it so much easier to get my liquids in. And part of that is, as many of you know, I am not a fan of citrus flavoured things and watermelon things, yet somehow at Beam they've managed to get it so they both taste really good. And so I love it. So there's 3 flavours in these electrolyte powders with 3 different duties of the powders, I suppose. There's the balance one that's got prebiotics, probiotics, helps with your digestion and your immune system. There's the Perform, which has green coffee in it. I didn't even know there was such a thing, but it is. It's also got beet in it. It's going to help with your energy. And that's the one I'm going to use in my trail race. That's the one I've been using. And I really, in my runs, I should say, and I'm enjoying it. It tastes good too. And then they have the Recover, which is going to restore your collagen. It has branched chain amino acids, which support your muscles and help with fatigue. Oh, and I should add, they're really careful about their sourcing. And I grilled them on this, you better believe it. So yeah, check out Beam. With the code TINA, you can get 15% off your order or 20% off if you use a subscription. So go check it out when you finish your run. Please do not go check it now, because that defeats the purpose of what we've been talking about here, which is that we want to be connected to our run. And so, yes, I'll give you a prompt at the end to go check it out so you don't have to do it now. There's also a link in the description for this, so you can go check it out there. All right, so for the 30-minute group, you have just under 10 minutes left. So for the 45-minute group, you're almost halfway. So in a minute, we'll take one more check-in for the 30-minute group, and it'll be our halfway-ish check-in for the 45 group. But for this moment, why don't we just think about something what is your goal for this run? Something that we often take for granted, and I know many runners, and I have been more than guilty of this in the past, get carried away thinking what it needs to be, what the pace I decided in my head should be. But what is this run to you? If this is an easy run, be honest with yourself. Are you running easy? Could you and I have been maintaining a conversation? You can hear how I'm talking right now. Would you be able to talk like this and run? If the answer is no, you're possibly running too hard. If it's supposed to be an easy day. If you run a harder run, then I'm hoping this is up-tempo enough for you. But these are kind of these are designed, I should say, to be that easy running companion, as if you and I were just out on a little recovery run together. So I'm going to turn around because this is the halfway point for the 45-minute group, and I'm doing it out back. So I ask you, if you were with me right now, and I'd love for you to think of your answer, you can share with me on social media. Are you a loop person, an out and back person, a biggest loop possible person, a creature of habit? I always find it very interesting hearing about what their runs end up being. For me, as much as I'm doing an out and back right now, it's on a quiet path where I don't have many interruptions of roads. I can just talk to you. Only a few people to stare at me as if I'm very strange. And you should see me, by the way, right now. I'm running along, carrying my phone with this, like, looks like a, I don't know, like a rolled up rat on the end, which is the microphone cover that hopefully protects from wind. But yeah, it looks like a rat that's rolled into a ball. So I would be interested to hear the brains of the people I'm running past, what they possibly think that could be. Especially with me running along talking to myself. So it'd be funny to think about. And I'm gaining my confidence in that, in running along and talking to myself. But I find these runs, I feel so much more, I want to say rested, focused. I don't know. There's something about it that makes it fly by. Even though I'm running on my own and you're running on your own, imagining that we're together, imagining that we're running side by side, and just that pausing to think about how we're feeling and to take in our surroundings, for me, it goes by so much quicker. And I really enjoy it. It feels like what running should be. But yeah, I'd love to know what kind of runner you are in terms of the loops. Because I wonder how much it tells about a personality. There's got to be some things, right? I'm sure of it. For me, yeah, I'm doing an out and back right now, but I am definitely a one big loop person. The US Olympic trials was on that course, and it was, what they do, like 6 laps or something? I can't think of anything worse for me. Actually I can. When ultra runners do the 24 hours around a track, that's definitely worse for me. But then I wonder if that's maybe what I need, because we always avoid the things that we need the most. So interesting to think about. But what about you? Tell me, share, are you a big looper, a little looper, a creature of habit? There's plenty of different kinds of runners. Love to hear it. Okay, got a few minutes left for the 30-minute group. So this isn't, in this kind of run, I'm not telling you to push. This is not one of those workouts. I'm telling you to keep it comfortable and enjoy this run with me. Because that's what we're doing. As much as running is about getting physically fit and training, it's also something we do because of the joy it brings us. And yes, running is absolutely not always great, but it is good for us, right? It feels good as we're doing it. We know it's that kind of enjoyable discomfort, or at least it should be with this run with me. And you know the feeling you're going to get after. So let's do a final body scan for the 30-minute group. And for the 45-minute group, let's check in just over halfway. How are you feeling? What parts of you are feeling sore, tight? Are there any parts of you that feel different in a good way or a bad way? Now it's up to you. You can do the head scan all the way down, or you can just be in your body and feel. So for me, what stands out right now, my arms are a little cold. My underwear is a little uncomfortable. Too much information, but truth. And otherwise, I feel good. I feel smooth, I feel relaxed, and I'm enjoying this. And let's think about mentally for a second. How are you feeling? I haven't really given you the space to work through something. But if you are in the 30-minute group, I'm going to spend a few minutes after we get you on your walk to reflect, think about how we're feeling, to process through what's coming to mind when I ask you that. So if you want to walk along and keep joining us with that, I'd love for you to do that. But let's think about what it is you're feeling emotionally. If there's something that still comes to mind for you that did when I last asked you, it's bothering you. And it probably will continue to. If it keeps coming back to you, then it's there. But we've been making this essentially a form of meditation by continuing to bring this back to your body and being in the moment, what's around you. And how has that felt? It makes us stronger, and you probably got distracted while you've been listening to me, especially as I can ramble, but hopefully we're taking a step closer. And remember, with meditation, it's not about how bad you are at it, getting distracted. We all get distracted, and it's okay. All right, I've gone over 30-minute group. You are good to walk whenever your watch hits 30. Thank you so much for joining me. I'd love if you tagged me, took a picture and shared it. I'd love to see that you joined me for a run. And then go check out Beam TLC. That's their website. And use code TINA for 15% off. All right, so morning. So I've given away when I run. So let's take a moment to think about what we said. What are you feeling? What's coming back? Those things that tend to come up over and over again for us. At least for me, I find that it's because I know it's important, but there's a part of me that's scared for some reason. Maybe it's a hard conversation I need to have, and I'm scared for what it's going to do to the relationship, or what it could do to those I love, or what it could do to someone's opinion of me. And especially like me, if you're a recovering people pleaser, that's tough to let go of that. But I found that when I do have those conversations, even though they are often very uncomfortable, they're usually not as bad as we build them up to be in our head. And even if they are, even if they're worse, at least you've said it. You've said something. And obviously, we need to try to come at things with empathy and compassion, putting ourselves in the other person's shoes when we are talking to them, trying to think what they could be feeling. Because there's a difference between saying what's on your mind and just unloading emotions on someone. And I'm sure we've all had someone who just unloads their emotions and then rubs their hands together and says, I feel better now, but you don't. You have all this emotion, energy thrown at you, and that's suddenly hard to do anything else. But I've really found taking a moment before you go into these hard conversations to think about what the other person could be thinking, I should say, and going into the conversation asking first before we say our bit opens up the dialogue. Not that that's easy. I know it isn't. And trust me, I get it wrong over and over. But it's something I'm working on and definitely does help. But is it something else in you? Is it running related? Maybe you've been getting a pain coming up and you got that sinking feeling in your stomach. Maybe you can feel it right now. You know this isn't something to ignore, but you're doing so well, everything's going so well. Please don't make it be an injury. But the thing is, often with these pains, you know the answer. If it's in your gut and you are thinking about it every time I ask you how you're feeling, that's a sure sign that it's something you need to deal with. And stop. Not necessarily stop, I should say. Go see someone if you can. As much as I know it can be expensive and I pay for this myself, it's worth the investment if you can afford it. And if you can't, you got to change something. There's got to be a change. And also, looking at your life as a whole. It's so easy for us to say, oh, you know, on Tuesday I did 7 miles when I was only going to do 6. It's got to be that. It is very rarely one pinpointing thing or one day that you didn't eat enough. It would be, you know, you're having a stressful time of life and maybe you've been skimping because you on your meals because you haven't had time. Guilty as charged. Maybe you have been getting up really early and going to bed late and you know deep down you're not getting enough sleep. Maybe you haven't been getting enough protein or fats in your diet. Look at everything. And that combination is often what it is, which doesn't make it easy, because if there's something bothering you within your running, you want the answer, right? And that beam recovery might help you, but it's not going to fix everything. The only way of fixing something is to do something different. And if you can go to a medical professional, then that's that. And if it's lots of injuries that keep coming up and running really means a lot to you, then maybe you need to go see someone who's going to look at your running form. Or if you're someone who loves to run but you also love to do other things, then maybe it's time to decide which one means more, because your body can only handle so much and running is hard on the body. Okay, I'm going to give you a few minutes to reflect, because, you know, I've been talking a lot lately and I think it's good for us to have chunks of time, as I mentioned earlier, where we can just connect, reflect. Try and keep bringing it back to your body if you can, how you're feeling in your body or what's around you, looking at what you see, what do you hear, what do you feel, using those 5 senses. But if you find your mind wandering, just try and bring it back to what you're doing. And we'll check in a few minutes to see if you feel any different by doing that. And if, by the way, you do keep getting distracted, don't beat yourself up. Don't say you're useless. You're not. We all do it. Guaranteed I will get distracted during this time. Okay? So let's just try and do it together. Imagine, or maybe you are, going up a big hill and you and I can't talk because we just want to concentrate on getting up the hill. Let's just think, well, not think, I should say. Let's just be for a few minutes. Could you do it? For me, I started thinking about a story to tell you. What could I share? And then I remembered, hey, you said you were going to do it too. So do it. So I did. And I did have to cross the street, so I thought about, keeping myself alive. It's something that with these guided runs I want to work on, I want to practice. And I would love for you to share, if you're enjoying these, what parts of these you like the most. Is it the making you focus on the present? Is it the conversations? What is it? I'd love to hear what resonates with you. Because despite things loosening up, I sense it's going to be a while before we can all travel around. And even if we could, I don't see a time where we'll be able to run together much, or not many of you, as much as I'd love to. I find it hard to believe I'm going to meet everyone. And even if we did, it would just be a one time. So I'd like to think this is a way for the Running for Real community to be together. I mean, we have the regular Superstars posts. Maybe we could have a weekly run together where on the weekend or 2 days of the week, just to make sure that someone with a different schedule could make it. One of the days of the week, 2 of the days of the week, we go out and we have a theme. And maybe we all go together and you work through what I talk about on a certain day. I can make these more focused on a topic and talk through drills or strides or specific workouts or whatever it is that sounds good to you. But I need to know what it is. So I'd love to hear it. And make this as enjoyable of a run for you as it has been for me. Alright, so we're already just a few minutes away from our end point here. So let's do a final check-in. Firstly, have you done what you were intending to do? Have you kept it to the effort level? That is definitely a topic I can talk about another day. Explaining effort levels. Have you kept it to the effort level you said it was going to be? If it was going to be an easy run, has it been easy? Would you have been able to keep conversation with me? As if it's a recovery run, you should have been. And then the rest of you. Is there anything that is coming up now? If there's a pain that comes up towards the end of your run, that's an indicator of an overuse. That may be a sign for you to back down a bit. Take it easy for a few days. Maybe even take a few days off. How's the rest of you feeling? How's your emotions? Let's just go through the body one more time. I'll do the scan with you. Start your head. Anything you feel? Your neck, shoulders. You feel them moving back and forth. Your arms, your torso, chest, hips, quads, hamstrings, your legs, working through your knees, lower legs and feet. How's everything feeling? And what about your head? Did you enjoy this? Did it feel like it took longer or less time? I find sometimes with podcasts and books and things, especially notice this on planes, but I even notice it with my runs, that sometimes we use these media form, should we say them, to pass the time. It's like, when I'm done with this, then I'll be done with my run. Or get on the plane. If I watch these 3 movies, then I'll be there. But then you're not really there. And if you're not really listening and paying attention, is there a point? Because you're turning something that, if you put it on, you should be enjoying it or learning, growing, understanding something different. But if you're not even paying attention, is there a point? I don't think so. So think about that. This way may have been uncomfortable for you when I've given free quiet time. Maybe you're not used to quiet time. But has it been good for you? We're going to slow to a walk in just a few seconds. Or at least that's my 45 minutes. And we'll think for a moment. 3, 2, 1. And for me, that's us done. Enjoyed that. Thank you for joining me. How do you feel? I can feel sweat on my face. I can feel my skin tingling a little bit. I feel good. I feel refreshed, energized, and glad I did this. As you've probably heard so many people say over the years, it's very rare that we end up regretting a run. We often find ourselves making excuses. I'd better do this, I need to do that. But as I said, sometimes that quiet time, that solitude, it actually makes us more productive and in a better mood. So then we get on with the rest of our days feeling good. All right, my friends, thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you for the next one. Before we end this episode, I just want to take a moment to shout out my podcast editor, Jeremy Nessel, who has done such a wonderful job of looking after my podcast, taking out all the mishaps in the episodes, while still keeping in the vulnerability and the realness and the rawness of the conversation. This is not one of those podcasts where I take out the ums and the ers and the sometimes the delay in words, because I think it's very important to keep that authenticity. We're surrounded by perfected and manicured everything, and I think it's really important that Running for Real stays that way. So thank you to Jeremy for your work. I also want to thank Maria Vargas and Amber Moore, who are also part of my team. They've been a big part of this community and me being able to build this brand. So just want to give them a shout out too. All right, let's get right back to the end of this episode. Thanks so much for joining me today on this first guided run. I hope you will give me some grace, should we say, as it was probably a bit clunky and definitely lost my trail of thought a few times. So I apologize for that. But it feels more natural, right? Because that's what happens when we're running. And especially if you're having a one-sided conversation, it definitely does. I enjoyed the idea of thinking I was running with you, and I hope you will consider taking a picture of yourself out on the trail or wherever you are and saying that I joined you for a run. I would love to see. And I mentioned right before this episode if it would be good to make it into like a Tina for real, bringing that back, essentially having you submit questions and I can go over them. I can talk about things, whatever else you think I should be talking about. So be sure to send me a social media message, tweet at me, whatever of what these could be, or post about it in Superstars. I would love to see that, and we can see what we can make this into. Be sure to go check out Beam. So that's beamtlc.com, and go get yourself some of the Beam hydration products, the electrolyte powders. As I mentioned, they have been fantastic in my training and I'm really enjoying them. They're making drinking water much easier, especially as we come into the summer months. You can use code TINA for 15% off the site or for 20% off a subscription. Go to beamtlc.com to go check it out.